So today I am going to explain to you the easiest way to write an APA style research paper in nursing school. Every nursing program assigns these types of papers and it can be really overwhelming if you don't have any background in research paper writing. Fortunately, I have an extensive background in research paper writing. I worked for a research lab for a couple of years, and my undergraduate degree originally was in research before I decided to go into nursing. So I'm going to explain to you guys kind of the tips and tricks I have to write a research paper to make it quick, easy, and effortless, but a little bit of effort. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing, identify what you want your paper to be about. Let's just use the example of call lights going off and how hourly rounding can help. So we want to research hourly rounds and how they affect call lights on the floor. So first thing I do, so there's two things. You're going to need access to research journals, and typically your school will allow this access through their library webpage, where you will log in. You should have an account, and then you're going to go to journals, and then it's going to pull up all these different places that give you journals. If you're not sure how to find the journals in your library's website, you should check with your library because every school is slightly different. But just to give you an example, for nursing articles, you'd be looking in like EBSCOhost, which has a lot of medical journals, and Ovid for nursing are two big ones. So if you see something named like one of those two, you can click those and get into them to find journal articles. Okay, so once you're in there, you now have access to those articles through your school. So you can search on Ovid and EBSCOhost and see what comes up. But typically what I use is Google Scholar. I just find that the search mechanism or algorithm on Google Scholar is far better than EBSCOhost and Ovid. So I will search for the articles on Google Scholar, which then what will happen is typically you won't be able to access the article without paying. However, you can find the names of the articles that you want. Now, hourly rounding and call lights may give you articles on EBSCOhost and Ovid. You may have a ton, but for example, I wrote a research paper about the holistic treatment of schizophrenia, which was very difficult to find articles on EBSCOhost and Ovid because I feel like that's something a lot of people don't necessarily research. There's not a ton of papers on it. So Google Scholar was the way I was able to find the paper. So once I'm in Google Scholar and I search what I'm looking for, right, then I find the papers, and I won't have access to those papers without paying. However, I then copy and paste the title of those pages into EBSCOhost or Ovid, where my school will allow me access to those files. So we're really only using Google Scholar for its algorithm in finding the papers that pertain to the information that we're looking for, and then we're copy and pasting that into EBSCOhost or Ovid or whatever you decide to use for searching for your journals within your school website to then pull up those journals. So then we pull up those journals, we save them on our computer as a PDF file. What I do is I print them out. So once I print them out, the next thing I do is I get a highlighter and I go through and I highlight the information that is going to pertain to my paper. So for example, let's just use the hourly rounding and call lights. So let's say something in the paper says the use of hourly rounding diminished call lights going off by 60%. Well, that's a fact that we want to use in the paper. The whole point of using research journals is to find facts to put in our paper to explore our topic and the best that we possibly can. However, those facts have to be research-based, and that's why it is an APA-style research paper. So we read through our journal article, we highlight the facts that we're like, okay, this relates to our paper, we want to put this in. So when you get done with a research paper, let's just say that or should I say journal article, let's just say it's 5 pages long. You should have maybe 10 facts or so. So you want to do this for 3 to 5 research papers, depending on how long your paper is supposed to be. So you print out your research articles, you go through them, you highlight. So now every time you go back to that research paper, you're only reading the highlighted points. You don't need to look at anything else. So now it's time to write the paper. So in our head, we remember there were all these facts. We don't remember them off the top of our head, but we remember the gist of them. So what I do is I go in and I just organically write the paper. I'm not so much, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with like, I have all this information and how do I put it into a paper? So the way you want to do it is like you would write any paper, right? So you just write it like, you know, your first topic paragraph is explaining what you're researching and why you're researching it. And then you go into, you know, what you found and etc. So as I'm writing it, sometimes I will be like, oh, I remember this point that supports what I'm talking about. So I'll go through and I'll find it in the research paper. Okay, so I want to use the fact talking about that 60%, that there was a 60% reduction in call lights using hourly rounding. So I write that in the paper, but now it needs to be cited. Where is that information coming from? So originally what I do to keep it easy is I'll put my brackets, and then in it I will put a title that makes me remember that paper. So say that the paper was called Call Light Reductions Due to Hourly Rounds. I'll write Call Light Reductions in capital letters and bold it. So I'll come back and then I just keep writing my paper, and I do the same thing for all the facts. So now my paper is written. So now what I do is I go back and I find the bolded points, and now I need to write a correct citation. So in order to write a correct citation, and I wrote it on the board behind me, but I'm just going to tell you guys. So if you have one author, you're going to write the author's last name, comma, the year the year the paper was written, and then another comma, and then you're going to write P, periods, meaning page, and the page number that it's located on. Now, if you have two authors, you're going to do the exact same thing, except for the author's name, you're going to do the author's last name, and then you're going to do the and sign, so like the shift 7, and then you're going to do the other author's last name, and then everything else is the same. If you have 3 or more authors, the author will be author et, et, so author space et, and then all, so space al dot. And what that means is that there's more than 3 authors. So it's saying this author and everyone else that wrote the paper. And then everything else is the same. So if you need a reference, it is written right here behind me. So you have the last name, comma, year, comma, the page, period, number. 2 authors, last name with the and sign, and 3 or more authors, you're doing the last name et al. So that's how you would do that. So what I find easy about that is I'll go back to the one that says, say like, call light reduction that I said, right? So I'll type it out, whatever it is, and then I will copy and paste it every other spot that says call light reduction, so for that paper. So they're all done at once. And then I'll go to whatever the next paper is, and I'll fill it in that way. And that, because what I find is when I'm writing something, to stop and put in the correct citation in the middle of like the paper that I'm writing while I'm writing it, then I lose my train of thought in what I was saying. So it's easier to just put the brackets, write like a quick title that makes you remember that paper and bold it, and then just keep going. So once you've done that, now the body of our paper is done and it's cited. So what we need is to create a reference page and a title page. And so for this, for the reference page, this is the quick, easy way to do it. So you tab down so that you have a new page. In the top middle of the page, and all of this is Times New Roman, size 12, you write reference. So reference or bibliography? Well, a reference page. I think you can use either, but reference page. Then you tab down and you make it so that you're no longer in the center, that you're over on the left. Now, here is the trick. You go back to Google Scholar. You find your paper, so, you know, call light reductions, blah, 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 and it will say the title, it will give a brief description, and under that will be a bunch of options for the paper. So the first one is a star, which you can click to save it to your favorites or whatever. But the next one is exclamation points. You want to click that. And then in there, it's going to say MLA, APA, blah, 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 blah. The one that says APA, you want to just copy and paste it. Done. It is already cited in APA format to the correct paper. And you just want to make sure that when you paste it in Word, it is in Times New Roman size 12, except the name of the journal will be italicized. And you want to make sure that the papers you have are in alphabetical order by the first name of, the first letter of the last name of the author. Okay, so now we're almost done with our paper. All we have is the title page. So what you're going to do is now you're going to add a blank title page, or you can just, move your whole thing down so you have a blank page. So you're going to create a header, and in the header on the first page it's going to say capital R, running head, dot, the two dots, and then it's going to say your title all in capitals. So you've created that header. The header on all the pages after that will be the exact same thing except without the words running head, okay? So then you're going to you're on the blank page, it says running head title page, title in capitals, and you're going to go to the center of the page. On the center of the page, you are going to, in regular, so you capitalize the first letter but keep everything regular, the title of your paper, your name, and your institution. 3 separate lines, okay? So that's it. Your APA formatted paper is completely done. That's the easiest way to do it. And that is all my tips and tricks for finding papers, writing the paper, and making correct citations. If you really want, if you need to write a lot of papers, there is an application called Perla, and what that does is it works with Microsoft Word to help format your paper into APA format, so that can make things easier as well. But if you just wanted to be able to know how to write a research paper in the quickest way possible, I hope that you found this helpful. Make sure to subscribe below. We have new video content every Wednesday and a vlog every Friday. So I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye.